Good day, everyone. I am Christine, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone to today's webinar, that is Medical Record Chapter, meeting the CMS hospitals, COPs, access, and OCR security requirements. I would like to introduce our presenter for today, Laura A. Dixon. Laura A. Dixon recently served as the Regional Director of Risk Management and Patient Safety for Kaiser Permanente Colorado, where she provided consultation and resources to clinical staff. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Christine, and welcome everyone. Deficiency reports, I mentioned those. I have just a couple slides on what were the more common deficiencies with medical records. They didn't make sure unauthorized individuals had access to the records or actually altered them. Before I get into the conditions of participation, I do want to talk about the Office of Civil Rights and patient rights in general, and specifically access to the patient record. Well, access, how soon do we have to do it? Under HIPAA, we know it's 30 days unless they're stored off-site, which then you get 60, up to 60. There are some new proposed regulations. These still have not gone into effect. OCR, there's a document on it, and it talks about what the patient rights are. And again, paper or electronic, get it out within 30 days, charge, but no retrieval fee. In other words, it's the actual paper. So access, again, you may require a signed request, but you can't require it. So now interoperability, some of you may have heard of this. It's also called open notes. And what that was to do was provide and improve accessibility of that information. So here's what you have to have available with very limited exceptions. So what is blocking? Let's talk about that again. Cures Act Section 4004. This one is not new, the psychotherapy notes. There are 4 exceptions when it is not considered blocking. Now, preventing harm, you have to meet both of these requirements. Now, in that case, the patient has a right to request a review of that harm. You have to have an organizational policy. Number two exception. You got to have this policy, written policy and procedures. Number 3 is your security exception. If you don't have a policy, then you have to make that determination on a case-by-case basis to reduce that risk, that security risk. And then finally, infeasibility. It's not blocking because you can't do it. All right, now let's move to the meat of it. These are the conditions of participation. It's what you have to do in order to participate in Medicare or Medicaid. First, you have to have a service on organization and staffing of your department. On the form, well, that's up to you. You just have to have a record for each patient. They must be accurately written, promptly done, and filed, and retained and accessible. Accurate, promptly completed, they have to be properly filed and retained, and a way to retrieve them. They have to be protected. That's fire, water, and other threats. A way to identify the author, I mentioned that. Secure the record entries. Retention in the original or something that's legally reproducible. Then confidentiality. We have to have a way to ensure confidentiality. On release, the guidelines do cover when and what you can release without the patient's authorization. On release of the records, again, unless a court order says it, electronic, just make sure they're not removed, altered, or deleted, and you must have these policy and procedures. They must be in place. Now they include and keep in here legible and complete. Authentication, you have to have a way to identify the authors. Signing off, you can't use that thing that says document not reviewed. Next component is our verbal orders. We get them, it happens. Standing orders, you can use them if that's what you want. These are pre-printed. Now on standing orders, protocols, they know there's no one standard definition. Again, if the nurse can initiate without the specific order, the policy has to identify that, no matter what you call it. Other ones, well-defined clinical situations where they can do it. Moving over to history and physical, there have been some updates on this. It's starting with the medical staff chapter. Assessment documentation, we're back to the medical record section. Here, informed consent. This is in three sections of the completed measure, the entire program. You need it for all surgeries unless it's an exception, and then you can document that. And they also included discharge summary as a separate tag number. Who can complete the discharge summary? Anybody who's qualified. Every record has to have a final diagnosis to the extent you know it. You have to take reasonable effort. Again, this is one, it is not in the manual, but you're expected to do it. Other important sections I do just want to mention briefly. Now, with what time I have for the next half hour, I'm going over critical access and some other documents. You have to be able to pull any record within 6 years, whether you're acute, it's 5. Response to treatment, same thing for documentation. You have to authenticate all entries. How are you going to do it? So breach. If anybody has ever had to go through a breach and where you've had to notify it, my sympathies to you, because it's a headache for work and it's a publicity nightmare. OCR, the illustrious Security Risk Assessment. You must conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of any potential risk and vulnerabilities. It's a gap analysis that will show what are your current practices and assessment. Do recommend, and they still recommend, using your computerized pharmacy order entry. Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone listening, and thank you, Christine, for your assistance.
Thank you, Laura. That concludes the session for today. Thank you, everyone, for participating. You may all disconnect now and have a great day ahead. Bye.